Rae Sremmurd featuring Slim Jxmmi and Swae, Tupelo, Mississippi, active since 2010. Today's feature is a group that exploded onto the scene with hits after hits after hits. Their story is a perfect example of timing meets destiny. Joining forces with Mike Will made it when Mike Will was the hottest producer in the game, that anything he touched with a shrem of talent was going to blow up. Just so happens Slim Jxmmi and Swae had that in abundance. They also came with a lot of personality and energy matching the times. The early to mid 2010s was the age of the youngsters trying to do everything imaginable. A time where old heads love to say the sellers became the buyers and the youth became hooked on getting lifted and quote turning up more than any era. It was prime time, social media was just popping off, and these kids were the new stars. It started with guys like Chief Keef early 2010s, then from there snowballed into 3 different eras of the youth doing exactly what they wanted and experiencing everything life had to offer. From mumble rap to drill to the melody rap era we're currently in. But one ingredient they all possessed was if you wanted to succeed, it had to be lit or turned in respect to the Rae Sremmurd era. I still remember when No Flex Zone and No Type dropped in 2014 and caught everyone by surprise. There was instant engagement and dialogue about the duo, from what the f is a Rae Sremmurd to their song lyrics, cause if you had no type, wouldn't bad bitches be a type? Whatever the answer, one thing the majority shared was whatever it was, the new duo with the name spelled backwards, their 2010s kid and play look or personality, they had it and were here to stay. Mostly because of their talent, of course, the hits they produced with Mike Will and himself as the hottest in the game as a producer that elevated him even more. To this day, Rae Sremmurd is probably the best thing to come out the Mike Will era. No question they were and are successful artists, so in no way is this a slight against the duo at all. They came from homeless beginnings to following their dreams across states and made the duo relevant again for a new decade. Besides the Migos, Rae Sremmurd were the best group in that span. Their first 4 singles alone suggest that, going at least 3 times platinum each time. And to think it all happened within 2 years, 2014 and 2015. They'd score their first #1 song in 2016 with Black Beatles going 8 times platinum, representing the peak of Rae Sremmurd. As successful as they became, their fall from being hot was just as swift. They went a total of 4 times platinum in 2018 to nothing for the next 4 years, losing enough steam that they haven't been able to do that since. What happened to Rae Sremmurd's 4-year hot streak? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Rae Sremmurd is a duo consisting of brothers Akil and Khalif Brown, who grew up military kids moving constantly as children to planting roots in Tupelo, Mississippi. Heavily inspired by Soulja Boy, like most if not all the 2010s rappers, their group seen many makeovers, from a 3-man group twice with different third wheels, names like Lil Pants, Kid Crunk, Cali Boy, and Kid the Great, and lots of disappointment, like the dissolving of the relationship with their mother, who kicked them out the house in their late teens, and their music not catching on until making the move to Atlanta. But when they did link with Mike Will and sign with his label via Interscope, everything snowballed and took them on a legendary 4-year ride. Stunt #1, the hype train ran out of gas. Honestly, I never expected to write a feature on Rae Sremmurd because to me, they did what they were supposed to in their 4-year run and changed life for themselves at a young age, where 99% of kids can say they traveled the world, had #1 hits, and became stars in the social media era at that, where stardom is twice as elevating because it doesn't turn off. The hype train for these guys left the station in 2014, and I know for me, as soon as I heard their No Flex Zone single, I knew they were going to be stars. They had one main ingredient: they were different. Inspired by a lot, from Soulja Boy to Migos to the Beatles and rock star life in general, but you can't tell me there's anything out there like Rae Sremmurd. Even their name spelled backwards like that was such a huge impact for them because it created so much talk just about the name and how to say it. It became a conversation piece and a fun name to try and pronounce with your friends. It was genius. Then, to be honest, the star of Swae Lee. Swae Lee is, believe it or not, one of those one-of-a-kind artists that comes along with a sound all his and skill and ability you just can't duplicate. His tone and inflection mixed with ability to sing and rap made Rae Sremmurd really blow. He was an obvious star soon as you saw him or heard him for the first time. Jimmy had a star personality too, and he understood. That's huge in groups. He knew his place and never stepped on his brother's toes, in public at least. But the hype was well deserved for this duo, and most importantly, it was real. They created a whole term shrem life, selling over 40 million records in total in singles alone. But what worked against them, if anything, was anytime the energy is a party, it always dies at some point. Parties aren't 24 hours. Eventually, you get what you came for and leave and wait for the next party. In this case, interest in the Rae Sremmurd party died after years being lit. To even have a 4-year run in hip-hop is a success in itself, but it had to die at some point when the kids at the party all got older and moved on. Stunt number 2, Mike Will's production relevance. Mike Will made it. Like Rae Sremmurd, the duo also saw a peak of success around the same time and what some would call a fall from relevance over the years that affected Rae Sremmurd. He was the hottest thing in the game in the mid-2010s, and Rae Sremmurd was a huge part of his identity as a producer. Of course, he's produced for just about every hot artist you could name and is still getting major placement across the industry, but we'd be delusional if we said that the feel is the same later in the decade to now as it was back then. It happens to all producers. You couldn't fail early 2010s with a Young Chop beat. You couldn't get on the radio without a DJ Mustard produced track when he had the glow. No one wanted to hear it if it didn't start with the classic Metro Boomin' Want Some More tag. All the hot producers, you look at them over time, and like everything else, they had a life cycle of up, peak, then down. In relevance and impact alone, not talent. Fans age and change constantly, and when they latch onto something, for that time, it's everything. Mike Will had his time when he was the focus as a producer, and when the fans let him go, Rae Sremmurd struggled. On their last Shrem for Life album, he produced just 3 tracks. That too affected their sales and exposure later on and speaks to their prime being past them. Stunt number 3, Swae Lee and the Split. As par for the course, or what happens to all groups over time, whether to capitalize on the opportunities they can have on their own, or because they just don't want to work together any longer, they all at some point break up, and Rae Sremmurd was no different. Around 2016, talks about Swae Lee going solo became more and more real. Swae Lee, as mentioned, is a one-of-a-kind artist in my opinion. Those artists where no matter how many times they reincarnate, they'll probably end up an entertainer every time, and likely in music with a voice and ability like Swae Lee. Same with a rapper like Quavo. Fans understood this and always egged Swae Lee to drop solo music. This always takes away from the group because we're just human, and imagine how hard that had to be to see another groupmate get all the credit, even if brothers. But like Quavo, Swae Lee didn't become the success solo as expected, and if he did, may have pushed Rae Sremmurd's peak a little longer. As they both said, they never split, just grew apart and grew up. That right there is a prime killer for fans and signal it's all coming to an end. From 2018 to 2023, Swae Lee worked on solo projects and collaborations without Jimmy, and Slim just disappeared altogether. They came back in 2023 and failed to chart with any single. The album marked their first non-top 10 album and marked that the Shrem era is officially over. All in all, I can't hate on Rae Sremmurd. They were a fun, high-energy injection to the hip-hop body, having a 4-year run like none other of their generation. They made it out and sustained as long as they could, but things had to come to an end. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.